Hi, Carl here for ProAV TV, and today we're taking a look at the 5 main reasons why customers who ended up choosing the Canon 1DX Mark II picked it. Obviously, a huge part of why a lot of people buy this is its stills performance. This is, after all, a photography camera, and it's not just any camera. This one is Canon's flagship model, designed for very, very demanding work in nature, in sports, anything like that. I mean, it is by far one of the most popular choices for sports photography for any of the big events, and for good reason. This can shoot 14 frames a second with continuous autofocus tracking, which is some of the best in Canon's lineup. And it can do that for up to 170 images in its buffer. I've got this in high frame rate mode here, and when this goes off, it sounds like a machine gun. I'll just hold down the shutter button for you so that you can listen to what this thing sounds like. It's incredible, and you can carry on going like that for ages and ages and ages. If you're doing sports, for example, imagine shooting a 100-meter race and someone's running that in 10 seconds. You're just going to be able to track with them, the autofocus is going to keep them in focus, and hold down that shutter button for the entire race, and you're not going to miss a single step. You're going to end up with 140 uncompressed raw images, probably all perfectly in focus. I mean, it is a dream for sports photographers. This is, without a doubt, Canon's flagship model for incredibly demanding photography work. The 1D line from Canon is well known for its build quality, and for good reason. With its magnesium alloy chassis and its incredible weather sealing, the 1DX Mark II is really built like a tank. If we ever get any customers that want a small camera, but one that is really built to withstand the elements, if they're going to be going to the Arctic, on lots of shooting in the sand and in deserts, going up volcanoes, anything like that at all, where you really are testing your equipment to its max, the 1DX Mark II is just a go-to camera. Everything about this camera screams professional build. It's big, it's chunky, it's not the lightest camera in the world, especially if you're used to little mirrorless cameras, but the payoff is well worth it because this thing is built like an absolute tank. On the video side of things, 4K 50p is definitely the headline feature that gets most people's attention. 4K 50p is fantastically useful. It's becoming increasingly used as a delivery spec, and of course, if you're delivering in 25p, you've got that half speed slow motion with the full 4K quality. And there's actually very few cameras in Canon's lineup that do it. I mean, the 5D Mark IV can't do it, the EOS R can't do it, the C300 Mark II can't do it. So really, in Canon's video lineup, it is this, the C200 or the C700. Those are really your only choices in Canon. And so that is a big deal. It also does some nice 120 frames a second in 1080p. So for people looking for a bit of slow motion, this is often the Canon camera that they end up being drawn towards. Now, the disadvantage for me from a video point of view is the codec. It uses motion JPEG, and although that is fantastic quality, I've got no issues there whatsoever, it's a little bit processor intensive, and so a lot of people end up transcoding that to something like ProAV before they start editing. So that's a little bit of a shame. But one thing I do really like is actually the crop factor. It's a 1.3 times crop natively as a camera. And so I actually really enjoy working with 1.3 times. It's a crop factor that's not really talked about that often, but I find it quite a nice middle ground between full frame and Super 35. It has some of the advantages of Super 35, is in that it's not quite so shallow, it's a little bit easier to work with, but it has some of that unique image from a full frame sensor, and something a little bit different, a bit of a different feel to it. And so it really does have the best of both worlds for me in between full frame and Super 35. A lot of customers that I speak to about the 1DX Mark II really like its size. That's a big selling point for them. This camera is not too big and not too small. Of course, it's a lot smaller than cinema cameras, for example, like in Canon's lineup. There's the C200, C300, cameras like that. It's a lot smaller than those, but it's a lot bigger than mirrorless cameras, for example. And so it hits that sweet spot. It's big enough to impress your clients and of course give you that fantastic build quality and a bit of extra stability when you're shooting handheld. But it's small enough to mean that you can still take it anywhere and it doesn't get in your way too much when you're filming. So it's a really nice little sweet spot in terms of its size. So it wouldn't be a Canon video on this channel without me talking about their dual pixel autofocus. It's such a fantastically useful feature for video shooters, and of course it's here in all its glory. With a touchscreen on the back, it's very easy and simple to choose what you want to focus on and to track items. And of course you can use that face detect autofocus just like we do on this channel to keep your subject in focus throughout interviews or piece to cameras or anything like that. It's just so useful for anyone that's doing interviews or anyone that's doing run and gun, out of controlled situations, anything like that. It really does make your life an awful lot easier, and it's exactly the same system here as it is on Canon's higher end cameras like the C200, the C300 Mark II and the C700. So that was our list of the 5 main reasons why customers end up choosing the Canon 1DX Mark II. But let us all know what you think. Let us know in the comment section down below, and if you want to buy a Canon 1DX Mark II for yourself, the link is of course in our description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.